basate pega Nancy, pata pata sang, basate pega Nancy, pata pata sang, basate pega Nancy, pata pata sang, basate pega Nancy, oh, hiya mama, pata pata hiya mama. Hi there, Terence McGuana here, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to look at Sarafina from 1992. Set during the Soweto uprising of 1976, Sarafina inspires other students to rise up and protest after their teacher, Miriam Makeba, is imprisoned for teaching the true history of Africa. I remember when this film came out in 1992, and I remember seeing advertisements for it and just dismissing it. When I was 13 years old, that type of movie just didn't interest me. Lethal Weapon 3, that was what I was excited for. Alien 3, that was what I was excited for. Universal Soldier, right? That was the kind of movies that I dug when I was 13. So Sarafina, that just didn't interest me in the slightest. So I completely forgot about it until a couple of years ago. I heard this amazing James Ingram song, One More Time. I saw the music video for it and I was like, that's that one, that's that movie with Whoopi Goldberg and she's in Africa. What's that all about? And I eventually decided to watch it. I do appreciate musicals that take on some heady subjects, such as All That Jazz. Bob Fosse, to me Bob Fosse was the master of musicals, right? I'm not a big fan of the big sort of pompous 50s ones. I love Singing in the Rain, right? But see stuff like Gigi, Thank Heaven for Little Girls, just creeps me right out, right? That film. And but not really mad for the big brassy Judy Garland musicals, to be perfectly honest. I like musicals with a sort of darker edge, and Sarafina is that type of musical, right? Because it is actually set during apartheid South Africa, and you know, and it's based loosely on the Soweto uprising, where the youth of South Africa protested the sort of white supremacy that was going on there, and they ended up, you know, it was an absolute massacre. At the very beginning of this film, you meet the character of Sarafina, and she dreams of being this great sort of performer on stage, and she fantasizes about things, about, you know, being rich and having freedom in Africa. Freedom is coming tomorrow, right? She has all these like sort of fantasies about Africa in the future once Nelson Mandela gets out, and we meet this school teacher, Miriam Makeba, played by Whoopi Goldberg, right? And Whoopi Goldberg, even though she's playing a South African woman, she doesn't really try. She doesn't really try to do the accent that much, which is fine, right? I appreciate when actors do that. I know some people get their knickers in a twist when the actor goes, oh, Kevin Costner, he can't be Robin Hood, he's not doing an English accent. Who cares? It's Robin Hood, he's a fictional character. Robin Hood could be played by a horse. All the actors in this film are terrific, especially the lead actress, Lileti Komwalo, who plays Sarafina. She plays the title role, right? Her absolute descent from being this sort of innocent girl at school, full of hope and full of joy, and you know, singing all these songs that, you know, fantasizing of about a better life, and then when they get to these torture moments, these moments where the South African police are trying to find the troublemakers, they're trying to find the people that caused the uprising, that caused the riots and things like that, and they're torturing these children. And there's a really moving moment in it where they have these actors, it almost feels like real testimony. I'm convinced that they've probably got real testimony from the Soweto uprising here, because it just feels very realistic, where the characters are describing what has been happening to them by the police. It is quite an upsetting film in parts. For, you know, a mainstream musical, it does have some dark, grim moments in it. So be warned about that. One thing this film has in abundance is reprehensible white people, right? And I know that they got criticised at the time because there weren't any sort of likeable white characters in this film. It's almost like they've got the bad guys from Lethal Weapon 2 to join the police force in South Africa, just making sure I'm not standing on plastic. What I failed to mention earlier on, and forgive me for this, right, is that Sarafina's mother is played by none other than Miriam Makeba. Miriam Makeba is one of the most successful and most famous singers to come out of Africa, anywhere in Africa, right? And she was nicknamed Mama Africa. She rose to fame in the 1950s after appearing in the 1959 anti-apartheid film Come Back Africa. Now, soon after that, the legendary singer and activist Harry Belafonte became a mentor and colleague to Makeba, and she recorded her first album in 1960, received a Grammy Award for her 1965 album An Evening with Belafonte and Makeba. In 1962 and 64, she testified at the UN against the human rights abuses going on in her homeland of South Africa. The song that I sang earlier on, Hiya Mama, Hiya Ma, the Pata Pata song, that was an absolute juggernaut of a record when it came out in the late 60s. I'm going to leave a link at the bottom to this performance she did on the Ed Sullivan Show in 1967, I believe. Now, if any of you know anything about rock and roll music, right, the Ed Sullivan Show was the place to be. If you were anybody in music at that time, you had to be on the Ed Sullivan Show, right? The Ed Sullivan Show was just watched by millions of Americans every week, right? And there she was, Miriam Makeba on the Ed Sullivan Show, right? So you know from just her appearance on that show that she was no small fry. She was an absolute giant of a musical talent. Now, Miriam Makeba had got involved with the American civil rights movement of the 1960s, and in 1968 she married Stokely Carmichael, an important figure in the Black Panther Party. That was kind of the end for her in America because the US government revoked her visa. She then moved to Guinea with her husband and mainly played in African countries, except South Africa. She was completely exiled from South Africa. She couldn't even attend her mother's funeral because if she went back to South Africa, she would have been arrested for criticising the government. When Nelson Mandela was released from prison in February 11th, 1990, one of the first people that he contacted by telephone was Miriam Makeba and invited her to come back to South Africa. I mean, that must have been a dream come true for her, you know, to eventually go back to her homeland after absolute decades of exile. She hadn't been back since the early 1960s, and she was invited back by Nelson Mandela himself. When she passed away in the mid-2000s, which she did after performing on stage, Nelson Mandela spoke very highly of Miriam Makeba and how she had brought so much hope to people from her activism and from her music as well. She was just an incredible woman. Whenever you watch interviews with her, she just seems like such a really calm humanitarian, right? She had such an amazing presence and intelligence, right? She seemed to have what we call emotional intelligence, right? Which I think is absolutely necessary if you want to make your way through this life, right? Is to have emotional intelligence. It's one thing to be intelligent, but you need to back it up with some emotion. You need to understand how people feel at certain times and try to connect with that. And I get that vibe from Miriam Makeba. I get it from her music. Her music is very powerful. Her singing voice was just incredible. And yeah, just what an amazing woman. What a great example of African excellence right there. One thing I love about Miriam Makeba is she would sing in different languages. She could speak fluently in many languages, and she sang in different African languages. Like, I think that was Xhosa, the Pata Pata song is in. But one of my all-time favourites, and it always brings a tear to my eye, is Malaika, which is a Tanzanian song. Malaika nakupenda Malaika. That's just such a beautiful song. And yeah, Miriam Makeba is absolutely incredible. So I'm going to leave a link to the Pata Pata dance at the bottom and that James Ingram song. I just had to talk about Miriam Makeba. You know, that's the strange thing. I don't know how many films we've had about Ted Bundy or other horrible serial killers, these horrible people that really don't deserve our attention, but we're yet to get the definitive Miriam Makeba Mama Africa movie. I absolutely adore Miriam Makeba. Her music is fantastic, and her activism, her bravery, her ability to stand up against you know, the apartheid South Africa and speak out in the UN, that must have took some guts. That must have took absolutely you know, a real strong backbone to do that. And you know how much I admire heroism, right? And Miriam Makeba is a true hero. I totally got sidetracked, and I don't care because Miriam Makeba is worth it. She's worth getting sidetracked over. But yeah, please check out Sarafina. Sarafina is a decent movie. I wouldn't say it's incredible. I would say that some of the songs were a wee bit wishy-washy. They weren't as catchy or as interesting as I was hoping. There are some moments in it that are absolutely powerful. The torture scenes really were tough to watch. And it does get that story across. Now, thank you so much for watching my review of Sarafina from 1992. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscription button. And until next time, sa ngoga sate bega nansi pata pata sa ngoga sate bega nansi pata pata sa ngoga sate bega nansi pata pata sa ngoga sate bega nansi. Iya mama iya ma pata pata iya mama iya ma pata pata iya mama iya ma. Pata pata iya mama iya ma. Sa ngoga sate bega nansi pata pata sa ngoga sate bega nansi pata pata sa ngoga sate bega nansi pata pata.